Hi, this is Christian from Soundflow. So today I'm going to take a look at a request that we saw in a Facebook forum where we've got a person who is working on a project with a sound designer who's using Ableton and is only providing stereo exports even for mono audio. He's looking for a quick and efficient solution to detect and convert those stereo mono tracks into mono without having to do a split into mono for each track, as that wastes a lot of time. So let's try to take a look at if that's something we can fix via Soundflow. And I've actually not tried to build the script yet, so let's just try to see how far we get. I just imported some sample stems here. There's not a lot, but hopefully this can help illustrate the problem. Let's say we receive some mono tracks, so we receive some stereo tracks that we would like to split up. Now I don't know if the question here, if Ben wanted some kind of algorithm to detect, maybe some tracks he would like to leave as stereo and some of them he would like to split out into mono, but we should be able to add stuff like that into our script. So let's start by going into Soundflow and taking a look at how I would approach this. So I just went into my default package here and created a new script. Since it's empty, let's just create a new one here. And then I'll say split tracks to mono. So for something like this, there are two ways that Soundflow can interact with tracks. So the old way is to use sf.ui.protools and then go into tracks. We can say visible tracks, for example, and this is an actual reference to these track headers here. And that's going to be useful for, if we want to go in and right-click, for example, on the track title and choose split into mono. We could also take a look to see if there's a menu item for this. To check that, I'll say split into mono. And in fact, there is under track split into mono, so that's really helpful. That should allow us to make it even more stable rather than having to right click. Anything that involves mouse clicks is always more unstable. So if we just selected, let me just see, if we just selected all tracks and went like that, well, we would actually get everything split out, and the tracks that were split out are now selected. So this leads me to believe we could actually get away with doing this really, really fast. So let's see. Let's say that what we wanted to do was for that to happen, but we wanted any track that's stereo to then be deleted after. So of course we could also do this by only selecting the stereo tracks before, but it doesn't really change that too much. I'm just going to delete these mono regions again. So I may be misunderstanding the workflow that Ben wants here, because it does look like it's possible to just split everything all at once. But let's say that what we wanted is to split them, but then we want to get rid of the original stereo tracks that were split. So for that, I think I want to go in and use the new SDK level integration we have with Pro Tools. So I can go in here and look for the tracks array, or the track list, PT track list. You can see that is the type. Now I'll start by calling invalidate. And this means, this instructs Soundflow to say, everything under tracks should be considered invalid, meaning we'll now fetch a fresh list of all the tracks. So everything we're doing after this will always have no cached data about tracks. And then now I can go ahead here and say, let's look at all items and let's do a filter. So this is a JavaScript function that takes the incoming array and allows us to pass a function. It could be an error function, which is what's typically used, where we get past each item, so that would be a track, and typically we designate that in an error function just with a single letter for simplicity. So then I get to choose which of the items, so meaning which of the tracks should we filter. And so here I can go in and say there should be some kind of format. We can get, oh yeah, there you go. And we can see here that the format could be TF stereo as a string. So let's double check if we can do something like this. And this should give us the list of stereo tracks. Now to double check that this works, I can say for each of the tracks, let's map its name and then join those array items via the string comma and space, and then log it to the output. So now we see we get folder 1, audio 4, audio 5. So apparently I have some hidden stuff going on up here that this is really helpful actually, because it helps us discover a potential bug. So we not only want to only take stereo tracks, we actually also want to make sure we only take audio tracks. So let's just hover over the type here and make sure that we only take those that are audio. So now we just get audio 4 and audio 5. So this is really helpful. We now have that list of the stereo tracks. So basically, I think what I want to do here is get the names of those. We can look into later if that's necessary, but basically, instead of referencing some objects that represent tracks, now I'm sure I'm just referencing some strings. So we could then, just to make sure we're doing it properly here, we can log just that string array. Since it's a string array, I can even just log it like so, and we'll get the sort of the JavaScript, the JSON array here. All right, so now we have a way to get the existing stereo track names. Now what I want to do is make sure that those are selected. So, get stereo audio tracks, get their names, make sure they're selected. So then I'll do like this, Pro Tools, select tracks by name. And then I will pass in some properties to this action. So let's hit suggest, and we can see there's a selection mode. And again, I'll hover over it and I'll say replace. And then we'll give it the track names like so. Now, instead of clicking run command and command tabbing back and forth between Soundflow and Pro Tools, I like to create a keyboard trigger. And I always use Control X as the keyboard trigger I have assigned to the script that I'm currently working on. So let's go over here and say Control X, and we can see now, no matter what I had selected, the two stereo tracks will be selected. So now the next step is to click the menu item track, split into mono. I believe in Pro Tools, small words like into are not capitalized. Let's just take a look. Split into mono. Yeah. So for this, I will use the UI system. So I'll go sfw.pro tools and then menu click. And here I believe it's called menu path. Yes, and this accepts an array. So I'll just say track and split into mono. So, right. So we start by selecting the stereo tracks, then we split into mono. After this, the new mono tracks will be selected. Now what I want to do is to then make sure that I select the original stereo tracks again. And that I then call track delete. Now, if we look at those now, track delete, it'll have 3 dots because there's content on the tracks. So for that, let's just assume that that will always be the case for now. It is possible to, of course, handle both cases. And then finally, it will come up with a warning dialog. For now, I just want to actually see the warning dialog and then hit it manually, but we can make some code later to hopefully automate that part as well. So let's just go ahead and say, I've whatever selected. So what it did now, we can see it already split the tracks into mono, and then it reselected the stereo tracks, and it came up with the warning dialog. So this type of confirmation dialog, the best way to address that is to use the confirmation button dialog. So if I just type confirmation here, you'll see there's a confirmation dialog and a confirmation button dialog. The confirmation dialog is the old property that we used for a long time, but unfortunately in a newer version of Pro Tools there are issues in how the algorithm for this dialog works, because yeah, it's sort of a long story, but the condition for which we find a dialog here basically has to do with finding a dialog with an empty title. And in newer versions of Pro Tools, it actually creates windows with empty titles in the background. So the confirmation dialog property here would find some of those wrong windows, and we don't want that. So we'll use the new confirmation button dialog, which ensures that it looks for actual buttons like cancel and delete, and OK, and yes and no, like normal confirmation dialog button names. So we'll use that confirmation button dialog here. Then I can say element wait for. So this will ensure that we wait for the confirmation dialog to appear. And then we can find, it's actually, let's see if I can pick it like this. Yes, so I just, the highlighting wasn't working on the screen, but we now found the path to delete button, click delete. And so I'll just add the element click action at the end. And let's just go one step. Right, so we can't undo that. Let's just manually delete those. Oops. Oh, those were our stereo tracks. Let's see if I can. It's a little bit messy. Let's just create 2 new stereo tracks manually so that we get back to the state we had before. And well, I'm just keeping this up here just so we can see that we're not affecting tracks that are unrelated to this. Alright, so now we should have a script that first we've fetched the stereo audio tracks in the session. We get their names, then we ensure that they're the only ones selected. We then split those into mono. We select the original stereo tracks again, click delete, wait for the confirmation button dialog to appear, and then confirm the deletion. So let's see if that works. Alright, that did in fact work. So yeah, that's all I had for you today. I hope this helped you get a little bit further in how you can use both the Pro Tools SDK commands and together with Soundflow UI automation of Pro Tools to create really stable scripts.